When you're retired, you don't want to pay more in taxes than you have to, especially when you're giving money to charity. That's why we're going to talk today about Qualified Charitable Distributions, QCDs, including the top tax savings strategies and the 2025 limits. By the end of this video, you'll learn the age you can start making use of the QCDs, how much you can give with your Qualified Charitable Distributions, how it ties into your required minimum distributions, and the number one tax mistake I see where people are accidentally overpaying on their taxes. What is a QCD and why does it even matter? A QCD means that you send money from an IRA directly to a charity, and that gift is completely tax-free. Now, people ask me, don't you get a deduction when you give to charity? What does it matter if I pull out the income and then get the deduction? Here's where that comes into play and why income minus a deduction is not the same thing as giving money to charity tax-free. When you take money from your IRA, that will show up as income. When you take out $10,000 to give to charity, you would think $10,000 of income minus the deduction of $10,000, that would equal $0. It doesn't matter at all. Here's where it matters on the deduction side. Since the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act way back in 2017, they doubled the standard deduction, which means you are less and less likely to get an itemized deduction. You only get an itemized deduction if you have enough money giving out to charity to get to the itemized area. Most people aren't itemizing anymore. You add $10,000 of income, a $10,000 charitable gift, your income still shows up as $10,000 on your tax return because you don't get that deduction most of the time. That's the deduction side. Here's the income side. When you have $10,000 of income, that affects how much of your Social Security is taxed. That affects your Medicare IRMA amounts. That lowers your deductions for things like medical. Having more income often creates more income above that on your tax return, which is why you would love to get that money from your IRA to the charity tax-free. The way to do that is to make use of the QCD. QCDs are available to you once you reach 70 1/2, which might sound familiar. That's the old RMD age. When they changed to the new RMD ages, required minimum distributions, that is now 73, and coming up soon, it'll be 75 for people that are born in 1960 or later. You can still make use of the QCD, Qualified Charitable Distribution, even though you aren't forced to do your required minimum distribution yet. Often people ask me, why would I bother doing the QCD? Well, when we look at things, if you're giving money out to charity already and you're not getting the tax deduction, you'll be glad to hit that 70 1/2 age where you can take money from the IRA, send it directly to the charity, tax-free now, and money out of your IRA going somewhere else reduces your IRA amount, which will reduce the forced out required minimum distribution down the road. Thankfully, too, the Qualified Charitable Distribution comes to and counts as the required minimum distribution. When you're forced to give out a certain dollar amount, perhaps it's $10,000, and you want to pay taxes on it, when you're giving away $1,000 or $5,000 or even $10,000, it'd be great to have your required minimum show up tax-free, and you can do that by having the QCD go out automatically. I just met a couple. They were 75 years old. They had moved from Ohio to Wisconsin. I asked them to bring along their tax return. It was my first meeting. They said, why would we bother bringing along the tax return? Don't you just work with investments? They did, though, bring in the tax return. And I saw on there that they were taking money out of their IRA and they had no charitable deductions on their tax return. They were telling me how that they gave quite a bit of money to charity. What they were doing is they were taking their $10,000 required minimum distribution out in January. They were giving it to charity at the end of the year, and they weren't getting any tax deduction at all. We projected out and saw in the next year when their $10,000 required minimum went directly to charity from the IRA, their taxes were lowered by over $2,000 because they were using the QCD strategy once we started showing them how to do that. You've learned how the Qualified Charitable Distribution can get money from your IRA to a charity tax-free. You've learned how it fits into the required minimum distribution. Make sure you also learn what the maximum amount is you can send out. The maximum QCD in 2025 comes to $108,000 that you can take from your traditional IRA to give out to charity. That is not a one-time maximum. That is a calendar year maximum. It resets on December 31st, which means you can give the max this year, and going forward, further years, you can also give the maximum. This maximum is not per IRA. That's just the total for you out of all your traditional IRAs that you can give out. And it's the total that is per person. You can give out the maximum. Your spouse can give out the maximum because that is not per family. That is per person per year. There's one big tax problem I see all the time that you want to make sure you avoid. This happens to anyone, but especially when you're giving out a lot of QCD, you want to avoid that tax problem. That's related to how the money that comes out of your IRA is reported on the 1099. There's no special way that a QCD shows up on your 1099. Make sure when you're taking money out of the IRA to give to charity, you've got the receipts, you've got the proof, and you tell your tax preparer that even though the 1099 has a higher dollar amount, part of that was tax-free. They need to subtract out that QCD and put the lower amount on your tax return. I see people's tax returns from the past all the time where they gave the money out to through the QCD and they did not get the tax deduction. Tell your tax preparer ahead of time, check your tax return to make sure you got the full use of the QCD tax strategy and did not pay taxes you should not have. The QCD tax strategy can be a huge benefit, especially when you're giving away large dollar amounts to charity. But it's a benefit you need to plan for ahead of time. Make sure you start in the beginning of the year, and before you give money to charity, map out, plan out how you can take the money from your traditional IRA, send it to charity directly with the QCD tax strategy, and also look at how it incorporates to the rest of your retirement income picture. To learn more about how to plan your retirement, head on over to keilfp.com. Hi, I'm Jeremy Keil. If you'd like to learn how my team can help you get more income, pay less in taxes, and avoid big retirement mistakes, head on over to keilfp.com. That's KEILFP.com.